Thank you for joining us. Thank you for registering. We understand that family law is can be a challenging time in people's lives, and so we wanted to give back our expertise and our insight for what to expect in the family law practice area here in Colorado in 2026. And our hosts today are attorney Heidi Whittaker, who is licensed in Colorado and also in Wyoming, and our intake manager, Amanda Tugman, who has a legal background, has completed law school, and is our front line manager when it comes to our intake team and our contact center. So that's the team who typically initially receives a call, and she'll go through that today. So thank you for being here. And without further delay, I'm going to turn it over to our intake manager, Amanda Tugman.
Hi, everyone. I just want to reiterate Stephanie in saying welcome. We appreciate you taking the time on a Thursday night to join us. And I know that you are going to gain value from this in particular because we do have Heidi Whittaker here with us. She has a ton of experience. If you check out her reviews, you'll be super impressed. And so I know she's going to give us a lot of information, and I'm excited for the question and answer portion of this at the end, but we will begin with kind of a presentation to go over high level expectations, what you can look for in filing a 2026 divorce in Colorado. This will be applicable, of course, if you've already started your case in 2025. It will be applicable to you if you're not quite committed to moving forward with the divorce, but it is something you're considering. I think there's a lot of good information here, kind of regardless of what your current situation is. So just to reiterate, welcome. Thank you for taking time to be with us tonight. I'm Amanda. I've had the opportunity to work with Johnson Law Group for 4 years now. It's a really excellent team. Most people who are joining us here tonight are here because you spoke with someone on my team, the intake team. And so if you've spoken with Daisy, Irene, Tara, Tiffany, Corey, or Ariane, I welcome you. I'm sure that you had a great first experience talking with them. And again, this will give you more insight into how our firm approaches things, more insight into perhaps your specific situation, especially during that question and answer portion of events. And we do specialize in family law, which means we handle quite a few cases within that umbrella, particularly concerning divorce and child custody. Of course, sometimes other things might come up like estate planning or protection orders. Tonight's webinar is going to focus exclusively on some of those major aspects dealing with divorce, but keep an eye out in case any of those other aspects appeal to you as well. We will continue to kind of share resources with our community. That's something that's going to be huge for us in 2026, is sharing some of these resources to kind of demystify this process a little bit, because we know it can be complicated. Things are constantly changing, and that's why we wanted to start the year off with kind of an overview. All right, so to begin this, before we dive too deep into what to actually expect when filing a divorce, I'd like to start by letting you know what to expect when working with Johnson Law Group. We've been in practice for a little over 10 years now. We have a couple of priorities here on the screen that you can see in our bullet points. I will give you a little bit more detail about each of them. In terms of experienced advocacy, one thing that Johnson Law Group really prides ourselves on is hiring for experience. We hire attorneys who are experienced in family law in particular and experienced in litigation. Not all attorneys have that background going to court, going into a hearing, and being able to present your argument to a judge. Another thing I really enjoy about our team, and obvious to some people meeting us for the first time, is there is a wide variety of backgrounds amongst our attorneys, paralegals, and support staff. So some of them have been judges in the past. Some of them come from a financial background. Some of them were educators of children. Some of them were CFIs, or child and family investigators. And so there's a very wide depth of experience and perspective that we can bring to each case, that's going to help us kind of sift out what's important in specific situations, because every case is obviously different. No one knows that better than you guys, than the people behind the seat experiencing it for yourself. In terms of a client-centered approach, I think there are a couple things we do that kind of set us apart. One is very rare within the legal community. It's a 24-hour response rate policy. I'm not sure if anyone here has ever worked with an attorney before. Something I hear a lot is that people struggle. They're looking for a new attorney because they struggle to hear back. They're not being kept abreast of what's going on in their case. We think it's important, if you're going to trust us with something as important as your children, your home, your marriage, your family, you're going to hear from us. You're going to know what we're doing on your case. We're going to make ourselves available for questions or updates. And we want to tailor our goals to you. We're not going to use the same paperwork. We're not going to use the same goals or strategy for each client. Again, every case is so different. Anyone who's a part of a family knows that. There are so many nuances that we have to be aware of and pick up on. So we really want to make sure we're tailoring it to you and your family. In terms of strategic results, there are a couple different ways that cases can go, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation, but we have a lot of tools in our toolbox, and that includes negotiation, being prepared for mediation, trying to reach a settlement when possible, but we're not afraid to litigate. I mentioned that earlier. We're not afraid to go to a hearing if it does come to that, and you're going to have someone who is experienced and able, and you're going to feel very confident when you walk into that courtroom that we have a strategy in place that we've gone over for a very long time so that you know what to expect if you find yourself in that situation. And then finally, we are proud to share with you our firm mission, which is to protect your rights today so you can build a stronger tomorrow. And essentially what we want to do is leave you better. If at all possible, our main goal is to leave you better than you were when you found us. We know this is a difficult situation to find yourself in, even in the best of times. We really take a forward-thinking approach so that we're not just trying to fix things in the immediate short term, but we're trying to find a plan that will allow you to feel better 8 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. That's really our goal here at Johnson Law Group.
Well, and let me just add on to that just a little bit, Amanda. There are a lot of attorneys who are only chasing that final order, that decree. You get the order from the court, they shake your hand, dump you off. We know you have a life to live after that order is issued. You've got to implement it, you've got to live with it. You're then out there, building your life. You've crossed the bridge and you've got a whole road to go. And so our goal is not just to get you to that piece of paper, to that order, but to help you prepare for surviving and thriving and building ahead down the road, because life's not over when that order gets issued.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So well said, Attorney Heidi Whittaker. And tell us a little bit about you, Heidi, and why you got into family law. I think it's so your story is a very it inspired me, and getting to know you and how passionate you are about doing right by your clients. So if that's okay, Heidi, can you tell everybody how you got into family law, how you got into the legal work, and why this work's important to you?
Absolutely. I've been practicing law now for nearly 20 years. I had a corporate career. I did a lot of auditing and financial work and systems development work in Fortune 200 companies. And I had been married for a period of time, had a young child, and found myself going through a divorce. Um, I had some very good attorneys who, even up to recently, after I became an attorney, they referred clients to me and I've referred clients to them. Um, as I was going through the divorce, I thought, well, now I'm a divorced mom. I've got to work and raise my child, and I don't have time to go to law school, which was, I had come to the idea that that was the graduate degree I wanted. And then I'm like, well, I'm divorced. I'm raising a kid. How am I gonna do that? In my corporate career, I went through some things and found myself being laid off during the merger of a company. And I was reminded that I had thought about law school, and I took the law school admission test and scored well. I interviewed with a company a multinational bank, on one day, sent in my law school application online. This was in July, and I'm thinking, they've got their class. I'm not going to be able to join it this year. I'm just going to get myself positioned and I'll get my feet under me with this job I've interviewed for, and this will happen. Well, I get a telephone call in less than a week from the law school asking me to pay my seat deposit because they expected me in class in a month. The day after I got that telephone call, I had the in-person interview with the multinational bank, and I started the job with the bank on Monday, law school on Friday, worked full-time in the bank during the day, went to law school at night, and for 4 years, nobody saw me without a book in my hand. I made the dean's list every semester but my first. And then I came out of law school and I was panicked thinking, oh my God, now I've got to take a bar exam. I ended up getting into family law because I had such good attorneys taking care of me during my divorce. And I wanted to pay it forward. And then, of course, they became my mentors and things happened. And now that's what we try to do. And that's one of the things with Johnson Law Group is we have a very team type approach. There's no way that any single attorney can have seen every single variation of family law or of any type of law throughout their career, even if they've been practicing, 30, 40 years. So by taking a team approach, we can turn to each other and say, did you see this before? Have you seen this? What steps do you think I should do? And then we're not spinning our wheels going, now, wait a minute. I know I saw this 10 years ago. What did I do then?
I love it, Heidi. As you could tell, you guys, she has, a calling for this, from the early beginnings of her applying and getting straight in to law school and then going through the hardship, through the challenges of divorce herself. She definitely understands what you're going through on a personal matter. And then as a whole, our team here, we use each other as a resource. So that's what you get when you work with Johnson Law Group. So thank you, Heidi. All right, Amanda, tell us about how to get started. Let's say I'm thinking about divorce. What is the first thing we need to make sure we know to get the process going?
Absolutely. So in order to file for divorce, we need to make sure we are filing in the right jurisdiction or venue. For this call, we're focusing on Colorado, and we need to make sure that we meet some requirements in order to do that, in order to file for divorce. So the first of which is called the 91-day rule, which means that at least one of the spouses in the marriage needs to have lived in Colorado for 91 days immediately before filing. So 91 days back in 2022 or 1994 might not count for us, but 91 days before we want to file will count towards that jurisdictional requirement. And so you don't necessarily need to have been married in Colorado. That's not necessarily important. In fact, many of our clients were married in different states or even different countries. But we do need to have at least one spouse within Colorado for 91 days. There can also be property in other locations outside of Colorado. That's no problem. We have experience with that. In terms of the other things we need to kind of think about before filing for a divorce, Colorado is a no-fault jurisdiction. And so what no fault means is we don't necessarily need to prove wrongdoing by either party. That is nice because we also don't need consent from either party. We don't need both parties to be in an agreement that a divorce is the next step. I often get questions about this during our intake process. I hear from people who have been delayed by the other party because they're not in agreement or they don't want to move forward with the divorce for some reason. Sometimes just to be difficult. Sometimes that's what we see. And so we're here to support you through that and make sure that you're able to get the divorce process done in a timely fashion, kind of regardless of that consent or agreement from the other party. And in terms of the legal basis for filing for a divorce, all we really need to show is that the marriage is irrevocably broken. And what that boils down to is the two people in the marriage are no longer getting along. So it's not necessarily too tough, but what I like about this legal standard is it prevents more private or intimate details from the marriage and from the relationship from needing to be shared in a public forum, from needing to be shared with the court or the judge or put into any sort of public record. We don't necessarily have to search the background of the marriage in order to justify this decision. We just need to show that for a variety of reasons, the relationship has broken down, and at this point, we're ready to move forward with the dissolution.
Very well explained, Amanda. And Attorney Heidi Whittaker, does it matter, who files first? Is this something, once we know we want to get the process started, what do you recommend someone do, to make sure that they're covered, you know, and start with the right foot in the process?
It really doesn't matter who files first, um, especially in Colorado. In some states, the first person to file ends up paying the filing fee, and the person responding doesn't have a filing fee. In Colorado, both parties are going to end up paying a filing fee on their first filing. So that there's no benefit or harm to one or the other filing first. Some people say, well, I don't really want to be divorced, so I'm going to wait and see if they actually file. That's fine. Some people say, I want to be the petitioner. I want to be the first one to file. I want to be in control. Control's kind of a misnomer here because both parties are going to be held to be doing certain steps and certain disclosures, and the court's going to hear from both parties.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no tactical or strategic advantage necessarily from filing first, with one caveat. If we believe the other party might be intending to take the minor children out of the state, if we think they may be attempting to divert and hide marital assets or funds, then let's get the filing into the courts because there are some statutory protections. But other than that, who's first or who's second, we're all going to be in the same case together.
That makes sense. And I'm glad that we're exploring that and what we're talking about that. So if you think that you are ready to, go your separate way, the best thing we recommend is to contact an experienced family law attorney. In Colorado, we've got 5 offices, and like you heard from Attorney Heidi Whittaker, there isn't a direct, benefit to filing first. But if there are things that are at jeopardy, it might be a good idea to have that consultation so that we can discuss options and next steps. Okay, Amanda, what are these 3 forms? So about, when it comes to the family law court process.
Yes, absolutely. So again, I imagine that everyone joining us on this call tonight is kind of at different stages in this process themselves, but as we can all imagine and relate to, there is a lot of paperwork in a legal case, kind of regardless of where you're coming from or what kind of case, there's going to be a lot of paperwork. Here on this initial slide, we focused on 3 of the very initial ones at the very beginning of the case. The petition, right? That'll be the first thing that we file in order to initiate the case and put in our formal request for a dissolution of marriage. Typically, this is going to have some high-level information regarding dates, children, residency requirements, but it also has that temporary injunction, which Heidi was kind of referencing earlier. I will let her expound on that at the end of this slide, but the temporary injunction is important to a lot of potential clients that reach out to us for a variety of reasons, especially if you are considering leaving the state or the other party is considering leaving the state when minor children are involved. When we look at that second sheet of paper, the second JDF form, the case information sheet, again, that's pretty high level administrative detail. It's going to have your case number. It's going to ask for information on your addresses, whether or not you need an interpreter. The most important thing to keep in mind with these first 2 impressions to the court is that it is our first impression to the court. And so we need to make sure that everything we're submitting is factually accurate, on time. Our attorneys can help with that, of course, making sure that everything is submitted in the way that the court likes to see it and will not, again, add unnecessary delay to our case or our filing. The third, the summons, is very interesting to me. This is the legal notice to the other party. There is such a thing as proper service and making sure the other party receives that notice in the proper way. This is where I, on the intake side of things, often see questions arise or potentially even errors, people wondering if they were properly served or how to serve the other party. We work with experienced process servers when needed. There are kind of a variety of ways to get this done, but we work with experienced process servers when needed. And then in terms of cost, Heidi kind of referenced that previously, but it does vary by county. It varies who's going to take care of that cost as well. But that information is kept up to date. The most important thing when initiating the case is that we get the paperwork in on time, it's factually accurate, and we create a strong first impression with the court as we kind of begin our case.
Thank you, Amanda. That's why our intake process as a firm is so important. And right now we do offer complimentary initial calls to make sure that we can assist you and make sure that, we have what we need to then make sure the attorneys can get started with your case. Heidi, is there anything you want to add about these forms and initiating the case, especially, commenting on what Amanda mentioned, making a good impression with the court when it comes to working with us and our attorneys?
Sure. So, a lot of folks get concerned about privacy and about like the case information sheet will have things like parties and children's birth dates and social security numbers. These things are filed with the court under security or suppression so that the average person can't just, wander in, if you will, electronically and get them. There's certain demographic information that's included in these documents. There are certain standard statements, I'll say, that tell the court why we're filing in the particular county we're filing in, why we're filing in Colorado. They give the court the knowledge that, yes, this is something that should be on their docket. These documents do not necessarily contain every last grievance or every last offense that the other party has committed, because all the court needs to know at this point: who are the parties? How long has the marriage been? Are there children? How old are they? And that jurisdiction is proper here in Colorado and in the county we're filing in, so they can put us on their docket and know that they're going to have to deal with this case going forward. There are other steps in the case where the court starts to get more information and learns how much more space on the docket, time in the courtroom they may or may not need for the case.
Thank you, Heidi. There's a lot going on, it sounds like, as we're filing these documents in the background. So the best thing is making sure that they're filed correctly and the right information is on there, and that we protect your privacy, I think is the summary when working with us. That's important for you to take notice of.
And just like anything where we've got some part of the government, if you will, involved, there will be periods of hurry up and there'll be periods of wait. So, the attorney can let you know whether that hurry up or wait is normal for the process or if there's something abnormal about it.
Makes sense. We will be in the loop with the court, and seeing where it's at, because there is a process, right? So what about the service and response piece of it?
Absolutely. So When we're talking about service, something that's really important to note about that is this is when we start to see kind of the clock begin on your case. The court will start to use that date to create deadlines and create a structure of when the case has started. This will come into play a little bit later in the presentation as well. But for now, just know the court will kind of start the clock at the time the summons goes out, and there will become some deadlines that are created in order to, like Heidi said, not create too much of a waiting period when things involve the government. There are some rules there so that the case will progress on somewhat of a timeline. And then when we get that response, the second party who's able to file that response back, this is really when we start to see where are we at in terms of this case being contested or uncontested. What are the issues where we're at disagreement on? And we really start to be able to refine our strategy with our attorney or within our team of how we need to approach the case moving forward as we start to see where the disagreements are and where we can meet in the middle and where we might need to start putting together a stronger argument in order to move forward with the case.
So, what happens if somebody's like not accepting like the document? They're not accepting that the other person wants to get divorced. How does that work? And maybe you can speak to it, Heidi.
It's a great question.
Absolutely. So there's a spectrum. We can informally deliver the summons and the petition and the initiating documents to a party, and they can sign a waiver and acceptance of service. That starts things off where we can, go right into the process. And sometimes, very not infrequently, parties will think, well, if I just don't answer my door and don't, allow myself to be served, I can't get divorced, and they can't do this. That's why we use experienced process servers. We have various ways to make sure that we can serve them. And if they're evading service, if our process server makes a certain number of attempts, documents what's been done, we can go back to the court and say to them, here's what we did, court. Here's how we'd like to do a substituted service of process. They can't hide from us all the time. There are ways around it. And this is one of the things, even before we file the petition, we'll be talking to our clients. We'll be saying, what do you expect the other person to do? What has their demeanor been? Have you told them that you're getting divorced? Or is this going to be a surprise for them? Are they going to react violently? Well, maybe we need to do something to be prepared. We'll be talking to you. Strategy is important all the way along. We don't want to be caught with a surprise on either side of it. Either if we're responding or we're serving, we don't want to be caught with a surprise. We don't want to be creating things to react to rather than, anticipating and moving in a measured way wherever possible.
Sounds like you've seen a lot. Sounds like you've seen a lot.
I have had some interesting experiences.
So you heard it, folks. The more information we have, the more we can prepare, but we are prepared for the unprepared. I think that's what Johnson Law Group offers with the team approach and collaborative approach and working with responsible and very organized process servers and entities. Oh, financial disclosures. That sounds serious.
Yes, this is a big one. We're getting into the meat and potatoes really here. At this point in the presentation, we're kind of taking a shift. This is where things become super important. And so the first thing I'll say about financial disclosures is that by statute in Colorado, the parties in a case must make certain disclosures to each other. It doesn't necessarily matter whether we're in agreement. It doesn't necessarily matter whether we want to or agree to bypass that or not. We have to make certain disclosures, not only to each other, but to the court as well. Not all revolving around finances, but finances are obviously a big part of that in any divorce case. And so what we're essentially trying to do is we're evaluating what the marital estate looks like so that the court can ensure the division is just and equitable. That's the terminology that the court will use. And so just and equitable does not necessarily mean evenly. It's kind of a term of art that we can go into more detail into how that is determined, but it's also not necessarily as simple as whose name is on something or what date that something was purchased, whose name is on the title or deed, or who paid more for something. There's quite a bit that goes into determining what's in the marital estate, and some of the things that we need to be paying close attention to that come up in many divorces are, our stock options, our inheritances over time.
Thank you for joining our exclusive webinar where we broke down the Colorado divorce process and we shared strategic advantages that set our firm apart. We are excited you got to meet with attorney Heidi Whittaker and our intake manager Amanda Tugman. If you want to see more of these webinars, please don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel, and also you can contact us at info@johnsonlgroup.com for more information. Thank you again and have a great day.